for the last year, or maybe the last 10 years. Maybe you don't know. But there's a guy by the name of Barry Bonds, a local icon, who is in his final year of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And, I think today is the last stand of the curmudgeon. And just bear with me here. And I want to know where Giants fans are at and just Bay Area sports fans are at in general. Again, you can text us on the Comcast Business Text line, 888-957-9570. And where I'm going at with this is, print media has been dying a slow death for quite some time. It's not the same. I mean, I only know a couple of people in my life who physically have the newspaper delivered to their home. That doesn't mean that people aren't subscribing online. The New York Times just acquired The Athletic. People are still reading. People are still consuming media, but never has print media been less relevant. And that's the reality. And yet I look around at all these ballots that are coming out because the baseball writers of America, they're the ones that determine who goes into the Hall of Fame. Because for a long time, games weren't televised. We didn't watch our local team but a handful of times throughout the year. I remember growing up and KTVU, Channel 2, only broadcasted maybe 60 road games a year. That's what you got to watch, 60 road games. I'm almost 40. That wasn't even that long ago. I remember when Sports Channel was created, and oh my God, I get every single game, every 162 game. So now the fans get to watch every at-bat of every player's career. I watched every single at-bat of Buster Posey's career. You couldn't say that in the yesteryear, in the 60s, in the 70s. So it made sense to have the baseball writers, the beat writers, the people that were traveling and watching these games, seeing them. They were the eyes and the ears for the game forever. It made sense to have the baseball writers determine who goes into the Hall of Fame because average Joe fan like me, I didn't get a chance to watch every single Willie Mays game or every single Juan Marichal game or Willie McCovey. But I'll tell you this, I watched every single Barry Bonds at-bat in a Giants uniform, and I know for damn sure Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe did not. A man who covered basketball until 1987 when he became a columnist and basically was representing his region. And I looked at someone like him, and I call Bob a luminary when it comes to sports media. He is someone I look up to on television from around the horn and somebody that I've read in the Boston Globe. He didn't vote for Barry Bonds, but he did vote for David Ortiz. Now think about that for a second. He voted for David Ortiz, who tested positive and was on the Mitchell Report, who had no career in Minnesota until he met up with Manny Ramirez. He voted for him, but he didn't vote for Barry Bonds. And he didn't vote for Roger Clemens. Why? Why did he do that? Well, clearly everyone likes David Ortiz. That's one element, and you're going to hear that a lot today. We vote for people we like. We like David Ortiz. We don't like Barry Bonds. He was mean to the media. But there's more to this. The curmudgeon beat writer, the curmudgeon columnist is the dodo bird. People want to be happy. I watch sports because I love it, because it makes me happy. Saturday night was epic. Snow falling down at Lambeau Field as the 49ers are in a NFC divisional round game against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. How could you be mad? Yeah, if your team loses, you'd be devastated, but that's fun. And too many times, the curmudgeon beat writer doesn't want to be happy. And this is their last stand. The Baseball Hall of Fame voting is their last opportunity to make you miserable again. And this is where it really ticks me off. Bob Ryan felt an obligation, and I'm using him as an example, not because I don't respect him, because I do, and that's why I find this so interesting. I do respect him. But he represented Boston, and he felt an obligation to represent Boston in that area and the Red Sox by voting for David Ortiz. Where is our local media standing up for Barry Bonds? Am I the only one? Am I the only guy who could stand up for the greatest baseball player I've ever seen? We know the numbers. I could read them to you. You guys know he had 232 walks in a season. 232 walks in a season. The same year he had 46 home runs and batted .346. After steroids were being tested for. Okay? He has 762 home runs. He's the greatest hitter any of us has ever seen. And I'm not going to waste your time reading all the stats. You know them. You've seen them. But what drives me completely insane is when a specific set of people who cover the game don't want to acknowledge or represent this region. I used the San Francisco Chronicle as an example, and we talked a couple of weeks ago about Ann Killian. She didn't even cast a vote. She claims that she didn't see the email in her inbox. Now, Ann has done a fantastic job as a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I'm just a sports fan. I'm a diehard. I'm a part of the media, but I'm a diehard sports fan. And she's a journalist, and she's done a great job throughout her career. But on this one topic, I'm furious because she has an obligation to this region, to Giants fans, to represent us and vote for our guy and vote for the guy that kept baseball in this town, because there is no baseball in San Francisco, at least what you see now, without Barry Bonds. How are you not going to include him? It's a history. It's the museum. That's what Baseball Hall of Fame is. It's documenting the greats, whether you liked them or you didn't. We just spent an entire year eulogizing Big Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben Roethlisberger committed more crimes to communities and society than Barry Bonds ever did with some cream and some clear. And yet, it's as if it never happened. Do you think anybody's going to hold that against Big Ben Roethlisberger when it comes time for him to get into the Hall of Fame? No. No. They are absolutely not. Do you think anybody's going to hold the positive steroid test of David Ortiz against him? Hell no. He's going to get in. You know what's going to happen. I'm not even outraged anymore. I'm not. Because I know what's going to happen. The last stand of the curmudgeon beat writer and the curmudgeon columnists from a bygone era, they are going to punish Barry Bonds again and Roger Clemens for the 10th straight year, and he's not going to get in. And you know what? I'm so over it. I know you want me to come in and scream and yell, and you're expecting me to. I'm fatigued by the whole thing. And so here's my pivot. And again, Zaza Pachulia is going to join us in about 15 minutes, so go nowhere, because I really can't wait to get into the Warriors. There's a lot going on. This is what I'm asking. And I want the fans to help put pressure on the team. I don't need the Hall of Fame. I don't. I know this. San Francisco Giants fans flock to AT&T Park. They don't flock to Cooperstown. They don't even care about Cooperstown. We want to see our guys get represented. That's what we want. So I'm telling Larry Baer right now, Larry, if you're listening, if you're driving around the Richmond right now, anybody who's a part of the organization, I don't care about the Hall of Fame anymore. But do our guy right. Put a shrine for Barry Bonds and a statue at AT&T Park. Put it on right now. What are we waiting for? Don't wait for the Hall of Fame to screw over our guy. He represents our community. He's born and raised here. He went to Sarah High School. Do something for 25. Be proactive. Build the damn statue. It drives me completely insane that Barry Bonds is not documented more at AT&T Park. We need to shower this man with the flowers that he deserves. No, he's not a perfect human being, but who is? I mean, for crying out loud, if you're religious, Jesus sinned, all right? We've all made mistakes. It's not the end of the world. He's been punished long enough by baseball. And baseball itself has said, you know what? We care so much about PEDs, we're going to hire the guy who served the longest suspension in baseball history, Alex Rodriguez, to be the face of multiple television shows representing baseball. I mean, think about that hypocrisy. The selective jurisprudence by baseball writers is just awful. We all agree. So stop crying about it, Giants fans, and let's put pressure on Larry Baer and the San Francisco Giants to build the damn statue at 3rd and King. It's been long enough. I want our fans to be able to flock to that statue. And more importantly, I want that statue to be front and center when the old curmudgeon beat writer goes to their one game a year, or that columnist goes to their one game a year, and they have to see that statue as they're walking in to the house that Bonds built. That's what I want. I'm so over the Hall of Fame. I'm so over the Hall of Fame writers. It's a joke. The guy served his penance, all right? You kept him out for 9.5 years. You're probably going to keep him out for longer. What a complete joke. You guys know it. I know it. He's the greatest we've ever seen. Yeah, he was a jerk to you guys. You know what he was to me as a 12-year-old from St. Mary's Park? He was the dude that came when there was a bunch of inner city kids and played catch with us. I didn't care if he talked to the beat writers after a game or if he was in a sofa and he was kind of a jerk to some of his teammates. Come on, man. He is baseball in San Francisco. There is no San Francisco Giants that you currently see with the money that they have and the success that they have and that beautiful stadium without Barry Bonds signing with the Giants in 1993. He saved baseball here. And I'm so disappointed that the Chronicle of all places that printed more money off the back of Barry Bonds and had more articles about Barry Bonds throughout that entire run, how many people made money and profited off Bonds, won't back him and won't represent our community and vote for our guy. How dare you? Like, for real. How dare you? It's a damn shame. Build the damn statue, Larry Bear. I don't care about the Hall of Fame anymore. I want our guy to be in our city and have his stadium 10 feet high in the air, so when I go into AT&T Park with my kids, I can say, that's the greatest hitter I ever seen. I don't care about Cooperstown anymore. Jeez Louise. My God. Who's with me? 888-957-9570. And Zaza's going to join us in about 10 minutes. Steven, you want to get in here. Tell me what you think. I'm sorry. It's just, I've been holding that in for like 15 years.
It's an embarrassment for the league, though, if they don't vote him in. Baseball's already embarrassing themselves with the lockout this year and not being able to come to an agreement with
That's a whole nother thing.
with players who want to get paid.
Yeah.
Like, pretty simply, want to get paid.
Deebo Samuel's going to get an extension after 3 years.
Exactly.
3 years of NFL service. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
It would take Chris Bryant till he's 31 years old to hit free agency.
Right. Isn't there, but with Barry Bonds, though, isn't there something to him being the one guy that they'll pinpoint as to why the Hall of Fame's a joke? Like, after this, if they don't vote him in, how can anyone take it seriously?
How can you take it seriously when the guy who presided over the game, the guy who was the commissioner of the league during the biggest black eye in the league's history, the race barrier notwithstanding, okay?
Right.
In the modern era, Bud Selig gets in. Bud Selig has a plaque. The man who saw the whole thing, put his hands in his pockets and said not a darn thing about anything, who allowed Mark McGwire to be hired by multiple teams and stay in the game, who allowed Alex Rodriguez to be hired by Fox, ESPN, etc., and be the face of their television broadcast, the man who allowed Barry Bonds to get a hitting job with the Florida Marlins, that guy's in. But none of these other guys are allowed in. I mean, come on.
And guys who didn't start putting up numbers till they were 28 or 29 years old. I wonder what helped them. I don't think it was a well-balanced breakfast every single morning that put up the stats there. But Barry Bonds had been doing it even before all the steroid allegations.
Let me just say, look at this. We all know he did something, all right? We all know he did something. But it happened, and it happened in real time. You can't omit certain parts of history. Hey, you know what? We're not going to talk about Hitler. You know, we're not going to talk about World War I. Let's just move past that. No. If you're going to talk about history and you're going to have things that document, and when you go to a museum, you want everything to be documented. Now, history is usually written by the victors, right? So that's usually how it works. Well, the baseball writers think they've won. They've won, and this is their last stand. The last stand of the curmudgeon. And I'm just so sick of it. I'm so over it. I'm sick of these people representing the game of baseball poorly, the baseball writers. And they always want to point the finger, oh, the moral clause. Baseball hasn't told us what to do. No, they've told you exactly what to do. They allowed Bonds to get a job in the big leagues. They allowed Mark McGwire to get a job in the big leagues. They allowed Alex Rodriguez to be the face of the game. Are you kidding me? But you're saying on this particular thing, they haven't given me any guidance, so my cop-out is to not vote for him. Oh, my goodness. But you know David Ortiz is getting in. I mean, come on, guys. I saw this coming 4 years ago. When David Ortiz retired, it was like, okay, his first year will be Bonds' and Clemens' last year. And you know what's going to happen. We like David, he goes in. We don't like Barry, we don't like Roger, they don't go in. Let's go to Dominic in Pinole. Dominic, where are you at on this Hall of Fame thing, man?
Hey, Shafty, let me tell you this, man. I got on you yesterday about Garoppolo, but today, man, you got me want to go learn how to play baseball, man. I appreciate your passion. I think Barry Bonds do deserve to get in. I was at the stadium when he got the record. I was there when the lights were flashing. I was there when the guy jumped off the wall to get that ball, and he didn't get it. The guy in the bowl got the ball, man. Keep up the passion. If he don't get in, man, I'm not ever watching baseball again. Thank you, Shasky. I love your passion.
I'm with you, Dominic. And look, man, this is the thing. He's one of us. I'm born and raised here. I'm looking at Bonte. He just walked in the studio. He's born and raised here. Barry Bonds is one of us. They drafted him out of high school. He went to Arizona State, and then he went to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and then he came back around as a free agent. I remember when the San Francisco Giants had 1 foot in St. Petersburg. They were building a stadium and moving to Florida. And then they signed Barry Bonds as a free agent. Obviously, Peter McGowan and Larry Baer and that ownership group. That I cannot overlook what they did. Coming here, bringing the money, the know-how. Like, that's part of it. But so is the Bonds part. The Bonds part signing here created the buzz and got people excited. It's a travesty. I know I sound like a total broken record, but can we, and we're going to get back to football. We're going to get back into it. But tonight they're announcing this Baseball Hall of Fame thing, and I'm just so fatigued by it, and I want to see the Giants get proactive. He's not going to get in. Build the damn statue.
Yeah, statues are cool. Statues are cool, and statues will come one day for Barry Bonds. When will it come? I don't know. I think it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. We got to be patient on that, but he'll get his statue. As far as the Hall of Fame vote itself, I heard you talking about the local beat writers here as I was driving in. And look, local beat writers have an obligation to their companies. I'll say that. Should they vote Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. He's a Hall of Fame player. He's a Hall of Fame player. There's no doubt about it. But beat writers don't have an obligation to the Giants. No matter if you're writing for the local paper, you don't have to do everything because that would make you a homer and that would make you lose credibility. Now, you should be objective. You should be honest with yourself, and you should take your vote seriously. I think the Ann Killian situation here where the email gets lost in the shuffle and you don't make a vote. I mean, why are you voting? You should step down from voting. You should not have a Hall of Fame vote because that should be a privilege to have a Hall of Fame vote in any sport. It's a privilege to have that vote. And the fact that you're like, I'm shrugging my shoulders and I'm not going to vote because, it's just not that important to me, then it's time to give up your vote. Whether or not you're voting for Bonds is another thing, but just the fact that you're like, yeah, this vote's whatever. Like, I can't believe that they allow so many writers to leave empty ballots. Well, if they're leaving empty ballots, to move on to somebody else and have them fill out a ballot. Baseball's the only Hall of Fame I know that went through a season where they inducted nobody. And that's criminal.
And was proud about it.
And that's criminal.
Well, and here's the other part of this, B. St. Louis, those writers in that region, they feel an obligation to support their guys. Atlanta, they feel an obligation to boost up Chipper Jones and guys like that. Do you only think New York felt an obligation to get Mariano Rivera at 100%?
They did, but beat writers, though, they stay fair. They stay objective. That's more from the team stuff. Like asking a beat writer every single day, hey, man, you have an obligation to vote for Barry Bonds.
No.
I don't think it's an obligation
to do it right.
It's an obligation to just vote. Just vote.
Well, I'm with you there.
Just vote. Don't leave an empty ballot. But also when I look at the Ann Killian situation, and she's done a lot of fantastic things in her career. She's a great writer. She's been here in this market for a long, long time. It doesn't sit well with me when somebody says, yeah, I lost it in the shuffle. I shoulder shrugged. I'm not going to vote. Like we had the guy from St. Louis on last year, and he decided to leave his ballot blank for what? It's your first year voting for the Hall of Fame. You didn't see any of Barry Bonds' games. You didn't see any of Jeff Kidd's games. See, I'm more outraged at Jeff Kidd not getting a lot of love than Barry Bonds. I know Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer. I know why they're hating on Barry Bonds, because he wasn't nice to people. Which is why Randy Moss ended up getting first ballot Hall of Fame in the NFL, because he went on television, he put a smile on his face, and everybody forgets what he did off the football field. Where T.O., look, legal trouble, all right, he's got to pay some child support. Stuff happens. But on the football field, he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. But since he ticked a lot of people off, you know what?
We got to make him
we got to punish him. We're going to make an example out of him. So, you know what? The whole thing gets toxic. It gets nauseating. And at this point, whether or not Barry Bonds gets into Hall of Fame, I don't even think Barry Bonds cares anymore. He's going to live his life, whether he's in or out.
But don't you think Giants fans want to see their guy represented?
Of course. I want to see Jeff Kidd represented. I want to see Barry Bonds represented.
Right.
I'm sure Fred McGriff is not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. So I got bigger issues with Fred McGriff, Gary Sheffield is not in the Hall of Fame.
They both should be in.
David Ortiz is going to walk in there.
Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire saved the game. Now, they weren't great players. They weren't on the level of even Gary Sheffield, I would say. But, you got to document what happened. Yep. You have to represent these people. Bonte, the thing that drives me even more insane when you see what happened with the Astros scandal, Bonds has served a longer punishment than anyone from the Astros scandal. Let's go out to Mike in Pittsburgh. Mike, what do you got on Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame?
Hey, you guys, thanks so much for having me on. Listen to you every morning. I graduated from Sarah High School in 2000, so there was a bunch of days when I would go out and eat lunch, and we would see the Giants come for batting practice. And I just want to say that Bonds 1,000,000% belongs in the Hall of Fame. Even when the Giants won the World Series in 2010, 12, and 14, I was never as glued to the TV as I was back in 2007 when he was breaking the home run record. Every time he was up, no matter where I was, I had to try and find my way to a TV. So I've never been as glued to baseball or a situation as I was that scenario back in summer 2007 when he was about to break the all-time record. So he 100% belongs in the Hall of Fame. It's really a travesty. And I agree with you on the statue, and I hope they one day come to their senses on this stuff. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, I'm glad you called in. And again, he's ours. The guy grew up here and went to Sarah High School, WCAL. I mean, he still lives here, Bonte. He's royalty. He's Bay Area royalty, and I get it. Like, I'm not here to say that he didn't do stuff. We know that everything was sketch at best. At best, it's sketch. At worst, he took a bunch of steroids and it inflated all of his numbers. But it happened. And you can't go back in history and selectively choose who we want to punish and who we didn't. Ivan Rodriguez clearly did steroids. Clearly. David Ortiz was on the Mitchell Report and tested positive. We know this. It came out. And now we're backtracking because we like the guy and we've selectively decided who we want to punish and who we don't.
What happened? He's on TV.
Exactly.
A-Rod, he's on TV. A-Rod is likable now.
He was in the Packer
likable.
game. He was at the Packer game.
He's doing Fox Sports college football pregame. He's likable. If you're not going to put Bonds in, then you can't put any of the quote-unquote steroid offenders in. And that's not happening. All right? The whole thing about, you bring up Mariano Rivera and how he got 100% basically of the vote. Like, how does this whole percentage where you got to get it 75% of the vote to know if you're you're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. You shouldn't have to say, he gets 80% of the vote or he gets 90%. Like, how is Mariano Rivera the only unanimous Hall of Famer in the Baseball Hall of Fame? He's not the greatest player to ever play baseball.
No.
Not even close.
No.
He's a reliever, one of the greatest relievers ever.
He is probably the greatest reliever.
Vital players, you're going to give Mariano Rivera
and Griffey's not.
99% of the vote, and Griffey's not.
And Willie
Bonds
Mays
is not.
Yeah.
Jeter's not. Willie Mays is
Babe
not.
Ruth wasn't.
Pedro's not. Nolan Ryan's not.
I know.
It's just, baseball just has it. That's why I'm telling you.
You're over
they go
it,
on struck. I don't even care about baseball. We got NFC Championship game on Sunday. I got Warriors playing the Mavericks. Barry Bonds is going to get hosed again, and I could care less. I could care less about what baseball does. Baseball shoots itself in the foot over and over and over and over again. And I'm too old to be getting all irate over sports anymore. I'm not getting irate over baseball. I'm done. Yeah. That's over. Yeah. Barry Bonds, you know it when you said it. You know it when you saw him play. He was box office. You did not go to the restroom where Barry Bonds was at bat. Think about that. You did not go get a beer. You had to wait on hold and say, you know what? Barry's batting. And the cameras were flashing and everything. You talk about the gold gloves.
Yes.
You talk about the numbers. You talk about the stolen bases. You talk about everything. The only thing he doesn't have is a World Series ring. So,
Bonte, I'm going to say a name to you. You're a diehard sports fan. Gil Hodges is getting in, okay? Gil Hodges is getting in. Does that name have any... Come on.
No.
Exactly. You say Barry Bonds to somebody. I mean, Kanye West did a dang song about the guy.
Right.
People know who Barry Bonds is. It's absolutely criminal. Zaza going to join us in a couple of minutes. Hang tight. We got Drew in Oakland. Drew, get in here on the Baseball Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds. What are your thoughts?
Hey, good morning, fellas. I just want to say a couple of things about the Hall of Fame. That whole thing's a joke, man. You in all of them, like you guys already mentioned, the T.O. thing. It's not the Hall of Fame of your life. It's not the Hall of Fame of what he did when he left, the stadium. It's the Hall of Fame of what you did when you were in those stadiums, when you were bringing the house down and hitting home runs and throwing touchdown passes, like you were saying earlier about Ben. We don't care about what people do when they're at home, and these old sports writers, like you were saying, Joe, it's ridiculous. I guarantee if every year they said, okay, this is your 5 guys going into whatever Hall of Fame it is, football, baseball, basketball, and you let the fans vote like we do for the All-Star game, I guarantee you Barry would have been in his first year. No one cares about that. And like you said, this is the problem with baseball. They're too stuck in their old ways. And with the newer crowd, and they're going to go on strike soon. I mean, no one cares about baseball. Keeps killing themselves, and this is why the kids today don't want to see it. The travesty is if he doesn't ever get in, 30, 40 years from now, our grandkids are going to be like, who was Barry Bonds? Because he's not there. He needs to get in. I'm even saying, all these guys need to get in. Who cares that T.O. didn't get along with
know what, though?
His ass should have been in the Hall of Fame the first year.
I'm with you, Drew.
Hey, and the last thing, Joe, every time I see that coach, McVay, I just want to punch him in the face.
Hey, Drew, real
good
quick.
Call, Drew.
Good call. And I hear a lot of people want to punch McVay in the face. That's all good. Pete Rose is not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Would you say it matters at this point?
Well, here's what I don't like when someone has to pass away for us to allow them to get the appreciation. Right. I want to see them get Kenny the Snake Stabler, right? Obviously passes away before he's allowed to be inducted. Can we celebrate people while they're alive?
Cliff Branch, same thing's going to happen to Cliff Branch.
It's disgusting.
Pete Rose, he's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
He served his penance long enough.
But you know what, though? We still know he's the greatest. He's the all-time hits leader.
4,500 hits.
We already know he's the all-time hits leader. We already know he has rings. We already knows he played multiple positions in the infield. We already know about Pete Rose. So does the Hall of Fame, because this is what, if Barry Bonds doesn't get voted in, 20 years from now, we're going to be looking at Barry like Pete Rose. I think people will know Barry Bonds.
No, they
people
will.
People will know Barry Bonds. Now, baseball may try to eradicate his highlights. They may try to scrub his name off a lot of record books or whatnot. But they're going to know who Barry Bonds is. And I think that's what Barry Bonds is like. You know what? They know who I am. No. They know what I'm about. The peers know that I'm the greatest hitter of all time. So, you know what? I don't think Barry Bonds cares. And if Barry Bonds doesn't care, then I don't care.
Well, but yeah, here's where I would differ with you. Now, Barry might have all the money in the world, so who knows? But I'm sure he wants his family to have that day to celebrate him, right? On some level. I met Bob
Barry's
St. Clair.
Different.
I know
Barry's
he is. I know he is. And they made a different amount of money than who I'm going to reference here. But I met Bob St. Clair many years ago, and he was a Clover Milk rep. And he pulled out his Hall of Fame card because I knew who he was, and I shook his hand. And you should have seen him light up. Yeah, I'm a Hall of Famer. And he would wear his Hall of Fame coat everywhere he went. There was a sense of pride for him and his family. So I don't know, man. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
His family probably wants it a lot more than him. Barry's chilling. Yeah. He's cycling. He's chilling in his palace. He's all good. He's all good here. So we'll table Hall of Fame talk a little bit later. Hall of Fame vote coming out. What time does it come out? 1 o'clock?
Yeah, at some point this afternoon.
1 o'clock this afternoon.
And everyone will be outraged. And I know it's coming. And that's what I'm going to say to the Giants. Just forget them and build the statue.
Right.
Build the coolest statue ever.
Well,